Hey guys, it's Will down at Magic the Friendly Tavern on Facebook, and today I figured I'd do another deck tech. It's a commander deck tech, and this is Lathril Blade of Elves. I helped the guy build this kind of on a semi-budget. It's not completely budget, but it's not all out elves either. It's got a little top end in it. It's built for semi-casual. He said he didn't want something that would pub stomp, but he wanted something that could hold its own. So we kind of built this together. And he also had the Lathril Precon, and he didn't want to throw all of it out. So there's a lot of cards left over from the Precon that made it to the deck. So that's why it kind of seems wonky, if it does seem wonky to you. So let's go over our commander. First commander is 2 black and a green for a menace, 2/3. And over Lathril Blade of Elves deals combat damage to a player. Create that many 1/1 elk green warrior creature tokens. So you want to get this guy big so you can make a lot of tokens. You can tap him to tap 10 untapped elves you control. An opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. That's pretty good. That's a quarter of a player's life total if they're at 40. So you can kill with this guy. He's pretty decent. His stat line's something to be desired, but I mean, if you pump him, he does. They're kind of telling you, hey, you need to get him bigger to make him better. That's kind of the whole point. There's all sorts of ways you could build him. I mean, you could even put him in Voltron if you wanted to. But let's take a look at the deck. As you can see, I got it all sorted out into our piles. And if I need to, I'll pause the video and go through a pile and tear it apart so we can look at it in more depth. Because Elves combo. Elves are one of the few tribes that combo. Clerics, Elves, Goblins to a certain extent, all combo. Wizards to a certain extent at combos. Not many other tribes combo though. Most of them are on the beatdown plan. So what happens in an elf deck? Well, in an elf deck, you have a whole bunch of 1-drop mana producers. These guys produce mana. Usually for, you pay 1 for a 1/1 and are able to produce 1 mana. Let's go ahead and view some of these, like our good old friend here, Lathril Elves. Lathril Elves is 1 green for a 1/1. You tap to add 1 green mana to your mana pool. Pretty simple. Boreal Druid here is green, 1/1. It's actually a snow creature, but it adds 1 colorless to your mana pool. But still, same thing as Lathril Elves. Elves of Deep Shadow adds black, but it deals 1 damage to you. Green for a 1/1. Elvish Mystic, same story. Is a green for a 1/1. Tap to add green. We're running as many of these as we can. I might have even forgot some. Here's a Findhorn Hells. Yeah, tap to add 1 green. The Deathrite Shaman can exile target land for a card from a graveyard to add 1 mana of any color to their mana pool. Now, this comes up sometimes in Commander. I mean, we're running fetch lands to facilitate this, but also our opponents may be running fetch lands, or they might be, Get Rog or some other deck that wants to put lands in their graveyard, and maybe they're life from a loam, using a life from the loam strategy. So this can actually help us out because we can exile any land from any graveyard to add the 1 mana. So this is utilitarian as well as ramp. Then we can pay 1 black mana to tap it to exile an instant or sorcery from the graveyard, and opponent loses 2 life. Or we can exile a target creature from a graveyard and gain 2 life. This allows us to control the graveyard with Deathrite Shaman and keep the graveyard clean of things we don't want to be recurred from the graveyard from our opponents. And it also gives us a little bit of reach and utility. So that's why Deathrite Shaman is called the 1 mana Planeswalker. Again, it does pretty much the same thing as all the rest of these. And then we have Arbor Elf over here. And Arbor Elf does a similar thing, except for we tap it to untap target forest. So we got to have a forest in play to make this guy work. But he untaps that forest, adds another mana to our mana pool. It's good. Good to go there. Now, continuing the theme with mana producers, we also have mana producers here as well. But these mana producers produce a lot more mana. We'll look at Priestess Titania first. I might have forgot some. Tap 2 for a 1/1. Add green to your mana pool for each elf in the battlefield. That includes your opponent. So if your opponents are playing elves, this thing can get obviously ridiculous. Now, we're going to set this to the side, but we also have Marin here, who says, whenever an elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Marin, so she can get larger with elves coming into play, which is great, because we plan on putting a lot of elves into play. And she can add green to the amount of mana, or add an amount of green equal to her power. So the larger she gets, the more mana she can produce. Good card. So here's here's another one, and this is a good way to segue. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. This is what we call a Lord effect. This is a Lord. Whenever you get that +1/+1 for being in a tribe, it comes and on a 3-mana 2/2. Usually, it's a Lord. Lord of Atlantis for the Merfolk, though, is actually only costs 2. It costs blue for a 2/2. And Merfolk get +1/+1 and Island Walk. But that's a different story for another time. But it can add 1 green for each elf you control, like Priest of Titania, but it's only elves you control. Now, the great thing about these guys, and we'll just use Priest of Titania as an example, are we are running certain cards in our utility elves up here. And, okay. Sorry about that. I was just double checking. I knew that was the only one up here I needed, but I just wanted to double check, and I'm sorry for wasting time. So we have this Kyrian Dryad here, and it says return a forest you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, use this ability only once per turn. So we can bounce a forest and untap a creature. So think if we have this creature and a couple of our other elves out there, and we tap Priest of Titania for 4 elves, because we have 4 elves in play with those 4 cards. Okay, so we tap Priest of Titania for 4, then we tap for 5 and 6, and then return a forest and untap this and tap for another 4. So that's 6 plus 4, which is 10 mana. That's 10 mana. That can come down turn 4. That can come down turn 3. We can do that turn 3. Say we play turn 1 Arbor, Arbor Elf and all that. Like, that's a lot of mana to be generating so quickly. So that's the whole thing with elves, is they bunch up and create a bunch of mana really quickly. And with these elves that can produce a ton of mana, these this is another one that can untap. Return an elf you control to its owner's hand. Untap target creature. Activate this ability only once each turn. I don't know if we have. So then we can bounce this and untap the thing and then replay this. And if it has haste, which I don't think there's a way to give in this deck, but there is a way to give haste. Don't get me wrong. Then we can tap it for a 3rd time and, produce all sorts of insane amount of mana. But we can at least do it twice if we have both of those on the field. So we're looking for those cards pretty often. So we want to run that. And that's how we generate a lot of mana. Well, what do we do with all this mana? Well, we do all sorts of things with this mana, but our main win con with that mana would be this guy right here. Azuri Renegade Leader. For 5 mana, elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. If we have enough, we can activate this multiple times. And yes, you can regenerate another target elf. He is a 3-mana 2/2. But that overrun ability on him is a win condition. We're looking to create enough of that to make our elves big enough to swing through and kill. And our elves will be big enough because we have other lords. We have, here's a good one, Canopy Tactician. This right here. Other elves you control get +1/+1, another lord effect. And then tap to add 3 mana of green. Add 3 green. So that's good. You know, and we can use the untappers tap and untap it. Here's another Lord. This Lord right here is one of the was the original Lord of the Elves when they printed Lords. Elvis Champion. It came out in the same set as Lord of the Undead for zombies. Other Elves creatures you control get +1/+1 in Forest Walk. So the Forest Walk is good if we're up against other green decks. Here's another one. This has Reach. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. 4 mana, 3/4, so that's pretty good. It's pretty beefy too. Our elves can get insanely large. Here's another Lord. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Tap to create a 1/1 elf warrior creature token, which we're in the business of making creature tokens. We want to make elf tokens. That's something we want to do. So this is really good. Our last Lord here is not the best. It's 6 mana, tap to search your library for an Elvish Clan Caller. We'll only run a 1, so that ability is never going to work unless they're shuffling into our library. If somebody casts a spell at instant speed to shuffle this back in our library and we pay 6 and tap it, that won't work either. Somebody goes to kill this. We tap its ability and then use an ability to shuffle it into our own library. Then we'd be able to find it again with that ability, but that's not something we can do. This is just 2 mana for a 1/1. The other elves get +1/+1. That's good enough. This is definitely one that could be on the chopping block, but it's not. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's see what we got going on. These are what I consider utility elves, and some of them aren't even all that have that much utility. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. First and foremost, we have I'm running out of space quickly. Let's start up here in the top right-hand corner. We have Reclamation Sage. Reclamation Sage enters the battlefield, destroy target enchantment or artifact. Enough said. This is great to bounce. Return a creature to your hand, to untap a creature or an elf. With the Wirewood Symbiote, this is something great to send back to your hand so you can replay it. It's great. Here is a Lissalana Huntsmaster. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 elf creature token and that's great. 4 mana, 3/3 is not bad either. So again, we're trying to create elf tokens. We're trying to get a whole bunch of elves out there because we have other finishers that care about how many elves we can create. We're trying to get to 10, really, so we can activate Lathril's ability a whole bunch. Here's a tutor on a stick. Fierce Empath is an elf, but when it enters the battlefield, we can search for a creature card with 6 converted mana cost 6 or greater, reveal it, put it in our hand. This will come up, but later. Right now, we don't have any creatures that are 6 mana or above, but I'll show you a few that we are running that this can go get to make it better. Domination of Law and War is Vigilance, Menace, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of elves we control plus the number of elf cards in our graveyard. This is a slugger. It slugs. It fights. It's good at combat. That's about all it's good at, and it's not really good. It was on the chopping block, but he didn't want to remove it because he thought it was cool. But yeah, I mean, if we're taking a beating and all of our elves are in our graveyard, at least this comes down and it's huge. So there's that. Next up, we have Haldor, which I like this guy. 3 mana, 3/2 Menace. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of our library. Reveal an Elf, Warrior, or Tybar card from among them and put them in your hand. The rest on the bottom in a random order. This is our Tybar card, by the way, if you're wondering. So Elves and Warriors, which all of our cards are Elves, or most of our cards are Elves. We do have some creatures down here that are not Elves. It might be Warriors that can find. Not sure yet. And we have another utility creature that cares about number of elves. You gain 1 life for each elf in play. So if we got 10 elves in play, you gain 10 life. This will just keep you in the game. This will give you some longevity. It's pretty good. I like it. Back in the day, it was a 4 of. These things were nightmare and standard. Oh my goodness, these things won so many games. It's ridiculous, but it's a long time since then. This one right here is also utility. This is tap to put a +1/+1 counter on each elf you control. So this can be a multiplier. If we have enough damage on the table, this can multiply our damage by ×2 at least. It just gets our things bigger, makes them harder to deal with. So it's fine. Pretty good card. Then we have this guy right here, which says, whenever Mira, Thorn of the Glade, or another elf you control dies, you may pay 1 and 1 life. If you do, draw a card, which is great. We want some card draw in here. We want to get rewarded for our creatures dying, so that's one way to do it. Again, I think it was a holdover from the Precon. You have a Nature's Herald Flash. You may cast green creature cards so they have Flash. That's what we want it for, is we can play at instant speed, which is always great. Yeah, that's about it on that. You have Skimfar, Berserker, I do believe. Whenever another non-token elf or Berserker you control dies, draw a card and you lose 1 life. Yeah, it would be nice if it did work for tokens, but it doesn't. But that's okay. It still gives us value, especially in the early turns where we're trying to set up. In case we run into an early sweeper or something, it might can get us back in the game, keep us in the game. Then we're going to talk about this card right here. This may not be the perfect card for Commander or this deck necessarily, but I like it anyways. 2 mana, 3/3, Death Touch. But as an additional cost to play it, you either got to pay 3 or reveal an elf card from your hand. But I think this comes down early and stabilizes your board. Who really wants to swing into you or really to try and mess with you if you got this out there blocking, is what I'm thinking. And this thing also is a good beater. I mean, think of this thing. If we get it up to a 4/4 or 5/5 and it's just swinging in with Death Touch, they're not going to want to stop it. I mean, it'll chip damage. It'll get some good chip damage in. Again, maybe it's not what you're looking for in Commander, but I figure it's pretty good. And I really just love the art. The art is so sweet on this card. But yeah, enough about that. Moving on. And then we have our elf cleric, Shadow Shade, Skimfar. Opponent loses X life, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common, or you gain X life, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So this drain effect on your opponent could put them out of the game. Say you had 20 elves in play and your opponent's at 20 life and you just hit them for that. Just drop this and they lose 20 life. That's kind of the game plan we're looking for. And that's why these are in there. We're just kind of trying to create as many tokens as we can per turn. And we got a lot of mana to do it with. And if that's not working, we can go to plan B and make a lot of mana. But we're trying to make a lot of tokens. So that's why it's in here. And this kind of works the same way. This is Shaman of the Pack. And Shaman of the Pack enters the battlefield. And opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control. So same thing, a little cheaper. Then we have another finisher right here. And this is 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever one or more other elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 elf warrior token. This ability triggers once per turn. So you can only make 1/1 per turn. But that's fine. In 2 or 3 turns, this thing can make a bunch of tokens. But the ability, the 7 mana creatures you control, or elf creatures you control, get +2/+2 and Death Touch till end of turn. That's what we want him for. That's the big deal. That right there, if we can pump enough mana into it, maybe give him +4/+4, +6/+6 in Death Touch, then bam, we are in the market for closing out a game. And we can do that in this deck. This deck can do that. Definitely. So that's what we're looking for. He's also a finisher. And then another finisher we have is Jorga Warcaller. And Jorga Warcaller says 1 green for a 1/1, but we can multi-kicker it. So that means you can pay kicker ult multiple times. So for each 1 in the green you play, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. And other elf creatures we control get +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Jorga Warcaller. So the more counters we have on Jorga Warcaller, the bigger our other elves get. So again, it's like an overrun effect. So if we multi-kicker him 6 times, pay 7 mana altogether, our elves will get +3/+3, and he'll come in as a 4/4. So that's great. That's what we're looking to do. Let's look at tie bar real quick. And then we'll move on. Tie bar says elves you control have add or tap to add black mana, so you can make all your elves into mana dorks. Put a +1/+1 counter on one target elf, untap it. So again, we can do the mana generation thing where we tap for the amount of mana our elves can make, and then untap it. And against that touch, you'll end a turn, which sometimes is relevant. We can 0 to create a 1/1 elf creature token, which is always good. Or we can get an emblem that says whenever you cast an elf spell, it gains haste until the end of turn, and you draw 2 cards. It's wonderful. And I've gotten this emblem a lot in Standard, and it's really great. So that's it for our main collection of elves. We still got other cards to talk about down here that make up the deck. But right there is our 35 elf cards for our deck. So we're going to pause here because I can't make videos that are longer than 20 minutes or 25 minutes or my computer throws a fit. And we'll pick up where we left off. Again, my name is Will down at Magic the Friendly Tavern. Happy pack pulls, and as always, happy games.